All right, ladies and gentlemen of D-Class personnel, today I must report on an incident at the Foundation. Unfortunately, one of our D-Class personnel suffered an untimely death while attempting to wrangle an SCP instance. As always, our deepest condolences go out to his family, who will be receiving his estate of 2 disinfected jumpsuits and an expired can of Spam. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering what happened to our dearly late friend. Simply put, he made the mistake of underestimating the danger level of this particular SCP. Little shit got away from him and proceeded to contort his body into shapes that can only be described as according to this note, yoga poses on LSD. We don't yet know all the details, but according to the video footage, after about 15 minutes of this, the D-Class became part of the SCP circus, and well, let's just say it was not a very skilled performance. But as always, we pride ourselves on safety first here, and to that end, we've updated our procedures so that next time our D-Class personnel will have to undergo a rigorous agility training program. Ridiculous. Even more money spent. In conclusion, the loss of life in any situation is regrettable. But let's not let this unfortunate event bring us down. Instead, let's focus on the success of our containment procedures and securing all other dangerous SCPs on our roster. So I want to thank you for your attention on this, and remember, safety first, but always with a little bit of laughter. So what we're looking for today, SCP-2747, Object Class KETER, Threat Level Black, Special Containment Procedures. Foundation watchdog algorithms are to monitor online and print media for mention of SCP-2747 positive key phrases. All matches are to be tagged and forwarded to the Department of Analytics, which will provide further confirmation of SCP-2747 manifestation. In case of positive identification, all affected media are to be suitably corrected via standard Foundation media alteration protocols. Description: SCP-2747 is a phenomenon appearing in print and online media whereby platforms dedicated to the discussion of works of fiction begin to mention a non-existent instance of fictional media. Despite said non-existence, articles, posts, comments, and other related meta-content created with regard to the non-existent work of fiction will be found treating it as real. The non-existent work of fiction can be mentioned by various individuals in varying capacities, ranging from brief mentions in forum posts to being the subject of entire academic essays. Descriptions, screenshots, photographs of physical copies, and brief segments of text from said work of fiction can often be discovered in SCP-2747 affected media. Descriptions of it are entirely consistent with each other, and it has proven possible to reconstruct whole segments of fictitious media via descriptions of it taken from SCP-2747 generated meta-content. A list of fictitious media generated by SCP-2747 has been appended. I'll go ahead and let you know when I get to it. Where possible, the affected material can be traced to existing individuals. However, when questioned under duress, said individuals invariably deny having written the affected material and deny all existence of the fictitious media mentioned within. SCP-2747 has never been documented in real time. All observed instances thus far have been recorded post hoc. No instances have been documented prior to January 2008. The reason for this? Well, that's classified. It conforms to pataphysical observations documented in full in Appendix B. It is the current hypothesis of the Department of Analytics that SCP-2747 represents evidence of a naturally occurring anafabula, or anti-narrative, a cluster of interdependent signs, iconography, narrativeness that, when included to a sufficient extent with a fictional construct, leads to mutual annihilation. First-hand reconstruction of the anafabulous properties is impossible given its anomalous nature, but second-hand and third-hand descriptions have been generated from observational procedure Lucid Chalice and appended in B. It can affect through layers of metafictional narrative, i.e. meta-narrative containing the anafabula will cease to exist within the narrative, followed by the narrative itself disappearing from our reality. The key identifier of the anafabula is that it is invariably represents an in-universe antagonist, or anathema, in all manifestations of SCP-2747, likely due to inherent Narim components indicating it is alien, yet centralizing nature. Update. The above-mentioned hypothesis has been confirmed as a working model of SCP-2747. Please refer to Appendix B. I'll get into that. Update. The following procedures are to be enacted following the successful conclusion of observational procedure Lucid Chalice, and this is in Appendix B. At no time are the properties of the anafabula as outlined in Appendix B to arise in real life, whether as a result of deliberate or natural action. Any object, person, or event bearing more than significance level A to the semblance threshold is to be altered via whatever means possible. Access to information regarding SCP-2747, especially the information contained within Appendix B, is to be strictly limited to clearance levels 4-2747 and 3 analytics. Due to the pataphysical implications and inherent uncontainability of SCP-2747 as detailed in Appendix B, it is to be classified as KETER with immediate effect. This is Appendix A, partial list of manifestations of SCP-2747. Non-existent work referenced. Punta de la Espira. Medium, short story. Extent of manifestation. 17 articles created and edited on eswikipedia.org. Summary of work. Punta de la Espira, which is in English Tip of the Spire or Spiral, is apparently a 1951 short story by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It describes an unnamed protagonist as he sails down a river toward a desolate black-horned mountain in order to deliver a gift to an unspecified recipient. The journey is rough and treacherous, and he dies of exhaustion at the end of the story, appearing to be no closer to his goal than when he first began. The mountain is described in detail throughout the story with recurring metaphors, alternatingly alluding to it as either an abode of the gods or a demonic presence. Non-existent work referenced. Taturio, medium, animated film. Taturo, is that how you say it? Okay, bunch of fucking weebs out there. Extent of manifestation, one article created on tvtropes.org with 55 edits made to various trope pages ranging from despair event horizon to foreshadowing and what do you mean it wasn't made on drugs. Summary of work. Whatever the hell it's called, Taturo appears to be an animated film directed by Satoshi Kon shortly before his death. It is described as a psychological thriller chronicling a struggling manga artist as she attempts to complete and publish her first work under a tight deadline. Stress takes its toll and boundaries blur. She begins to hallucinate, and the movie ends ambiguously as to whether she has achieved her goal or succumbed to her weaknesses. Typical of Kon's style, the animation is described as meticulous, kaleidoscopic, and occasionally deeply disturbing. One scene features the protagonist physically grappling with the shadows in her apartment, described under the trope entry, "For Your Mind Makes It Real," as the manifestation of her creative block, which eventually engulf and consume her. Non-existent work referenced. No Sister of Mine. Medium, video game. Extent of manifestation. 77 threads on forums.somethingawful.com, each carrying between 3 to 103 comments. Most users were established members of the Something Awful community. Summary of work. No Sister of Mine is supposedly a turn-based role-playing video game of the fantasy horror genre published by Poacon for the Nintendo GameCube in 2005. According to reviewers, the player controls a party of 6 unnamed characters as they explore a ruined kingdom with the intention to find a lost companion referred to as Sister. It was widely panned by the reviewers, with much criticism being leveled at the glitch-filled battle system, incoherent dialogue, seemingly incomplete graphics, repetitive soundtrack described as nauseating and headache-inducing, as well as being impossible to complete. The game's non-playable characters continuously mention a coal-black, thorn-bound tome that, when read, would enable one to either obtain great power or unleash a dreadful curse, when most reviewers assumed to be the final questline required the player to backtrack through the game's previous areas and recover fragments of the tome using their newfound abilities. However, the reviewers unanimously claim that no fragments can be found. One reviewer goes as far as to claim that the items themselves were never found inside the game's coding in the first place. Non-existent work referenced. What is this? The Scopalendra Wiki. Medium. Collaborative fiction. Extensive manifestation, 49 different pieces of fan fiction ranging from 343 to 2,401 words in length, posted on fanfiction.net, each bearing between 1 and 6 comments. Summary of work. The Scolopendra Wiki is deduced to be an online collaborative fictional universe belonging to the horror, speculative fiction, and weird fiction genres. It appears to have been hosted on some form of wiki site. Through the address itself, it's never mentioned. The exact nature of Scolopendra's plot is hard to discern, as the various pieces of fan fiction sport vastly different storylines and a range of character interpretations, further complicated by the involvement of other fictional universes and settings. What is known is that it involves a cast of 7 characters wandering between a series of realms, amassing and collecting items possessing supernatural or abnormal properties. One item features heavily throughout the compiled works, a 7-sided obsidian emblem said to possess the power to destroy any object, person, or abstract concept with a single touch. It appears to be of great interest to the protagonists, who repeatedly make attempts to acquire it. However, it also appears to be currently in the possession of a sinister, unnamed antagonist who is alluded to repeatedly in several works, yet is never seen. Non-existent work referenced, I.O., Medium, musical album. Extensive manifestation. Review columns in a total of 14 reputable publications, including the New Bombay Times, Pitchfork, and LA Flipside. Summary of work. I.O. is described as the 9th studio album by the now defunct English rock band Radiohead. It contains 6 tracks measuring a total of 34 minutes and 18 seconds. The majority of tracks appear to consist mostly of digitally manipulated samples from Radiohead's previous albums, layered over with sparse acoustic instrumentation and vocals. Reception of the album appears to be highly positive, with the exception of Pitchfork's Jessica Green, who gave an average review of 7.0. It is mentioned that the album uses a characteristic grating binaural reverb layered over the lead singer. Tom York's solo track is a musical motif embodying what the New Bombay Times' Gushlan Andra believes to be its central themes of spirals of isolation and inspiration, of feedback loops that resonate into the level of the deeply personal, the trembling core of creative psyche. This individual also mentions lyrics referencing suicide and self-harm, though presented through a series of oblique metaphors. I.O. never fears to toy with the idea of self-hatred and self-desecration, yet the album as a whole seems to fall short of its mark, always orbiting yet never quite touching upon the dreadful center. Non-existent work referenced, Mavine, or A Treatise on the Metaphysics of Inner Space Travel, and the Kingdom of Erikar, whose name is Darkness Made Light, and further theological expositions thereof. Medium, novel. Extent of manifestation, 7 articles published in a single week in various academic journals of literary criticism, each by reputable scholars. Summary of work. Mavine is described as the contents of a manuscript and accompanying charcoal illustrations found in the house of Aribatil Abrams in 2014. Abrams appears to have been a reclusive writer and artist working as a maintenance technician in South Africa and clinically diagnosed with schizophrenia. Mavine is a nested frame narrative written in Afrikaans purporting to be a novel by a 17th century Dutch mystic. It describes the journey of the mystic, whose name is only given as Mas, learning of the structure of the Earth's interior as revealed to him in a vision. At the beginning of the novel, Mas dreams of a supernatural being that is aware of its nature as a dream entity and is highly indebted to Mas for bringing it into existence. In exchange, it promises to divulge to Mas the secrets of the earth. Mas, being corporeal, is unable to pass through the ground, and so the being decides to simply narrate the journey. It speaks of 6 realms demarcated by thresholds, ranging from the realm of treasure and minerals to an intangible plane of light and sound. Beyond these 6 realms lies another threshold, this time one of cold and silence, which is described to be Earth's core. Before it can be elaborated upon, Mas wakes and the dream ends. Non-existent work referenced, Ex Lux. Medium, interactive novel. Extent of manifestation. In-depth posts on 7 different fiction review blogs, along with a mention in a Time magazine article on experimental narrative forums. The title is also mentioned in 175 Twitter posts, largely in the context of recommending it as an interesting if underrated piece of interactive fiction. Summary of work. X-Lux appears to be a work of interactive fiction of the mystery genre, written in a mixture of English, Caladan, and Spanish. It is presented as a set of epistolary narratives from the point of view of 6 characters and a stream of consciousness narration of ambiguous provenance. Readers navigate between the 7 story threads, discovering hints of a murder or several murders eventually. The narratives converge at a roadside diner during a thunderstorm, and the characters exchange their stories. From here, the resultant narrative structure cannot adequately be described as simple framing devices or stories within stories, as the inner tales eventually begin to intertwine such that later tales shed new light on ones recounted earlier, or themselves link to segments of text earlier on in the narrative after lengthy detours. At several points, characters attempt to consult the testimony of an absent individual, referred to as the stranger. The identity of the murderers or victims is never known, nor does the story have a conventional ending. Appendix B, Observations and Conclusions from Lucid Chalice. This data has been lost. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was SCP-2747, dismissed.